Hi, my name's Andy Schmuckler, host of A Better Human Story. It seems to me that our chances for American democracy surviving are quite uncertain. We're in a place that we've never been before. We've got a guy who has all the powers of the presidency. He's got complete control for the now of the Republicans in Congress. And he's willing to do things that he's not legally allowed to do. And it's not yet clear whether he will obey the orders of a court. And it's not clear, though people don't much talk about it, but whether we'll ever have a really free and fair election again. I take some comfort in the idea that this guy's 78. We're not getting at the ground floor with a fairly young Francisco Franco. But nonetheless, he can do a lot of damage here. And he's allied with people who have certain kinds of capabilities. And one of the uncertainties, in fact, has to do with Trump. How much of the danger is because of Trump himself? So that if this guy has a massive heart attack and dies, and J.D. Vance becomes president, would that change much? J.D. Vance doesn't have the hold on a lot of people that, for some reason, that kind of escapes me. Trump has on a lot of people. Trump has a cult following. Would they just transfer to J.D. Vance? But on the other hand, there are a lot of capable people, and there has been a whole organizational thing coming through the right wing for decades. There's sort of an organized force, like the people behind Project 2025. So even without Trump, there is a whole organization, tight and loose in different places, that has made this terrible moment possible. And it would attempt to do what's happening now, continue to do it. Would they ally with Putin and the way Trump is led to do? That's one uncertainty. But this is a plutocracy, and you can bet that the tax cuts for the billionaires being paid for by the rest of the people in some fashion would be is just about what they want. We're in a political battle, an illegal battle. And those have participated in a wonderful thing that people have managed to build, which is ways of conducting battles in which blood doesn't get shed. There's a lot of that, and you don't have the rule of law, where you don't have the will of the people. So right now we've got an uncertainty about the will of the American people. We've got some uncertainty about whether the courts can see us through this. And the problem there is that the Supreme Court sits at the top of the whole system. So even though these various judges at various levels are coming down hard on Trump for his illegal actions, it's not clear that the Supreme Court will side with the rule of law like these lower courts are doing. They didn't in the immunity decision. So the public uncertainty, and it's relevant because at least one hopes we're still enough of a democracy that if Trump were to tank in public opinion and there was a upswelling of opinion that was maybe even reached the point of looking like a movement or something. But anyway, that would affect what happens. I mean, that the president wouldn't call out the National Guard to expel everybody. I mean, you just don't know what would happen. But if we'll have an election, then like in 2018 and then maybe in 2026, the Democrats sweep. Maybe that begins to correct because the Republican Senate is able to do pretty much anything that Trump says. They'll ratify anything. Yeah, it's really been pretty disgusting how much they've sold their soul. I don't think that's going to change. Some people think it might change if the public opinion changes, but I think that maybe some of them. But I think the power of that cult is sort of scares me a little bit about public opinion. What percentage of Americans simply cannot be taken away from Trump for whatever reason, and no matter what you try to show them? I don't know the answer to that. I do think that the stuff that he's shown since he became president, I really think it should have cost him more percentage points in the polls than it is. I'd be more thrilled if it was like 10 points down, like 10% of the people who saw this mess that he's creating and said, I didn't mean to vote for that. But it hasn't been. I keep on wanting to believe that all these reports about sinking in the polls amount to something like that, but I think it's more like maybe four, maybe as much as 5% he's lost. So I do wonder whether he has a hold on, how much of that remaining 46% will be his no matter what he does or what anybody says or shows. I've tended to err in the direction of thinking that the people who have supported Trump could be brought back to other values that they've previously expressed were important to them. I did talk radio in a very conservative area, and they support in the political realm the very opposite of the values that they said that they held. And I believe them. So the American public, is there a way of even not just the few percent that said, I didn't vote for this, is there a way of reaching into the people who have been held to Trump by something kind of deep and profound, sufficient to overpower values that they actually hold? Like list when I address this, which I do in messages to the conservatives that are my op-ed pieces that appear weekly. I describe the values that I heard on the talk radio shows in the 1990s out here that I really admired and that they seemed genuinely to hold. And I started thinking a lot more positively about the idea of conservative values. A lot of respect for the Christian values that some people would articulate. I mean, love thy neighbor as thyself and do unto. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff there that if that's your value and you're living by it, well, here's to you. That if everybody treated everybody else the way they'd want to be treated, we wouldn't have very many problems left. I appreciated that in the ways that they held it and the ways in which they had passions for it. And then there were the kind of 4th of July patriotic values. The Constitution, free people, city on the hill, all that stuff that the Statue of Liberty and from sea to shining sea and for justice, liberty and justice for all. That kind of conservative value held as a patriotic thing of I love my country. I mean, I love my country too, but conservatives are gushier about it. And I tend to be more of a critic. I never liked my country right or wrong, for example. I did an 8th grade paper on that. Stephen Decatur and first half of the 19th century. My country may always be in the right, but my country, right or wrong. Nonetheless, I saw something beautiful in the kind of conservative patriotism where, I mean, I don't go for that America, love it or leave it crap. That's the pathological aspect of it. But there's something fine about the love they have for the a reverence for what our Miracle in Philadelphia is a famous book has it when our founders took a huge positive step for humankind in crafting this thing we call the U.S. Constitution. Really quite an achievement and worth celebrating. I can understand the pleasures of not getting into to the ambivalences that we have about the way we got the continent and other dark aspects of our history, the way we treated Central America, place of slavery and racism. That's I'm on the critical side of things, but I do love my country. If it hadn't been for this country, my ancestors, haven't rather than producing me, would have been dead at the bottom of the what's it called, Baba Yar, or Earth. Anyway, it's an ugly piece of the Holocaust. That this country. I've never shied away from criticizing it, but wow, I've been to lead a pretty decent and free life. It's not everything is the way I like it to be, but compared to most of humanity, this country has made it possible for me to live a life that previous generations in most places over the thousands of years would have envied. Gratitude for that is appropriate. But anyway, these conservatives have the, I don't have a flag out on the 4th of July. My wife likes to read the Declaration of Independence. Okay. But these people do put the flag out on the 4th of July. And I kind of appreciated back in the 90s what that signified because they did love the country in a way that I loved it too. The political force that they are supporting is attacking all of that of law, justice, Christian values, patriotic values. And then there's another thing that was really present in a lot of discussion in the 1990s and the culture war that was developing about character. The rap against the liberal world is that not enough value was given to the idea that people should have good character. And I thought, yeah, there's something important, and I could, I had one foot in the liberal world, one foot out here in the conservative world, and I thought that liberalism really didn't place enough emphasis in people's having the good character to have integrity, to be responsible. Um, that went into creating what some people called a culture of dependency. That was a liberal mistake, and I think that the conservative focus on character, the importance of if we're going to have a good society, every person should have a good character, or at least as much as you can get. And that wasn't enough stress, I don't think, in the liberal world. And here they are, all lined up behind a man who has virtually every character defect. Major defects. He's greedy. He's a bully. He's a liar. He's cruel. There's probably a few others that we could load up and say, yeah, these are the main ways in which people are really not the kind of people you want to give power to. So we've got some very deep-seated problems here, but we have the immediate problem of the weakness on the one side and brokenness on the other side have combined over the years to lead to a place where somehow a guy who's shown that he's the worst possible person to be president gets elected by half of the American voters. And he got there because of with the help of the Supreme Court, that in an atrociously undefensible way helped Donald Trump escape the rule of law from holding him accountable for the most serious crimes in American history. So we've got a lot of uncertainties. We're not sure how many people we can get to see what the choice is that faces the nation in terms of our path forward into fascism or back to democracy. And to care enough about it to withdraw their support, or if they're to support the pro-democracy side. We're not sure how much public opinion is going to matter anyway to a guy who doesn't pay any attention to the law, but just keeps doing what he wants to do, and now threatens to disobey court orders. There are just a lot of uncertainties to watch. Can we mobilize the American people to be a powerful weapon against this Trumpist fascist force? Can we get the Supreme Court to say this Trump presidency isn't what we had in mind when we gave him that immunity? We had no idea we were unleashing this. And besides, if he disobeys court orders, we're no longer the big deal we used to be. So things are going to unfold in the next few years. I hope that we didn't actually lose the war for the foreseeable future on Election Day 2024. If we did, that defeat points to some profoundly terrible, broken things that happened to America. Allow that to happen. But in addition to wanting to understand the mistakes that people made in the Republican base, in how liberals perceived what they were up against, how they fought, what Republicans are willing to do to sell their souls, all these kinds of brokenness that have been manifested in the whole system. It's led to this moment where American democracy really might be destroyed. Can that be turned around? It depends on so many things. But if we don't try, well, that's not okay. Because if we don't try, we've given up on something of sacred importance. The difference between a free society and a fascistic society is of sacred importance. And to give up without even exerting oneself to one's maximum abilities, to mobilize whatever force that we can. The Supreme Court as a force, the public opinion as a force, the new democratic leadership that knows how to awaken the public support for democracy against fascism. All those things remain to be seen. We've gotten to this point because we failed at a lot of stuff, pretty much across the whole American body politic, in different ways. Do we need to go through the nightmare of living under a dictatorship for a while before things in this society move in the necessary ways, and so that we can climb out of the old fascist regime the way Spain was able to when Franco died in 1976 after 30 years? Well, time will tell. We got work to do. Schumer is not the kind of leadership we need to get maximal impact on the battle in these times. And that's what we need. Maybe I'll make another video on who is there out there who could be the voice of leadership that we need to maximally mobilize the American people. I have to give it some thought first. Thank you. Bye-bye. abetterhumanstory.org